How
Thank you.
can you explain about your transition from journalist to wine critic?
Because as a journalist, I always looked at wine as a subject.
I think you are really the greatest communicator about wine.
A wine really enhances your life.
Bonjour, 최정화의 랑데부입니다. 오늘은 제가 누구랑 함께 하는 줄 알아요? 세계 넘버원 와인 크리틱인 J.Suckling과 합니다. Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Bonjour. Can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm J.Suckling. I'm based in Hong Kong, but I'm happy to be here in Seoul. And I rate about 32,000 wines a year with my team. And in my life, I've tasted over 200,000 wines. So I'm a wine critic. I tell people what to drink. I report about the happenings in vineyards around the world. And I'm actually married to a Korean called Jungmin Kim. So that's pretty exciting too.
James, what I'm interested in is the most is that the food and the wine, their pairing is very important. So for good wine, can you recommend what food, for example?
Well, obviously I have to say that great food, such as Korean food, goes with great wine.
Uh-huh.
And, people often ask me, well, how can Korean foods go with fantastic wine? And in fact, I eat Korean food every day and I drink wine every day. So it has to go well together.
So Marie is working every day for you. Wow, great. And then, do you like, for example, as Korean dish, Didier loves bibimbap, but I love bulgogi. What's your favorite food?
I love bulgogi, but I eat some bibimbap. I eat kimchi rice every morning with an egg before I go out tasting.
Wow. And do you enjoy kimchi 볶음밥?
Yeah, of course.
Oh,
yeah.
Of course. Okay. Yeah.
Marie actually makes fresh kimchi and ages it too.
Wow, I didn't know that, Marie. Okay, so good. I heard that you have very new project, and then it's about AI. So what are you doing with the AI? Can you explain a little
Yeah,
bit?
so I've been working about 6 months on AI for wine, and the whole idea is to map and correlate my 42 years of tasting, and then people will be able to actually communicate with all that information, and then they can start leaving their preferences about wine, and then the AI can tell them what they should drink and tell them what wines are associated to the wines that they like. And the whole idea is that people have a way to discover wine without actually tasting the wine. So that's really interesting because now when you're tasting wine, to understand your preferences, you have to try this, try that, try this. Well, AI can help you understand what you're drinking, help you discover new wines without even tasting wine.
And then I think for me, what is very important is the wine glass. And I remember when we first met each other, you talked about your project about wine glass.
That's
Can
right.
you explain a little bit? Because for me, my favorite touch with the material is glass. So can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so I make glass, wine glasses, a whole range of glasses called J.Suckling 100 Points. And it's a collaboration with a French crystal company called Lalique.
Lalique.
From
okay.
Alsace. And actually they're gonna next year they're gonna start selling their whole line of Laliques, not just my glasses, but their crystal in Korea. So it's coming to Korea finally.
Okay. I heard also your new project. You purchased some vineyards in New Zealand.
Yeah, that's right.
Can you tell me about that?
Well, Marie and I purchased a vineyard in January. It was originally called Kiwa. It's a small vineyard of 3,000 vines of Pinot Noir.
Pinot Noir.
And they were planted in 1988. So for New Zealand, 1988 is very old. New Zealand's only been making wine seriously since the 1970s. And this is one of the best, I think one of the best vineyards in New Zealand for Pinot Noir. So we already made one vintage that we harvested in March. It was a very rainy year, but we made some really nice fresh wines. and the wine has a Korean name.
Korean name?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's suspense. Stay tuned. Yeah.
And we're only going to sell the wine in Korea and in Hong Kong.
Only 2 countries?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm sure that Korea would buy all of it.
I think so. There will be nothing. It will be left for Hong Kong people.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we're pretty excited about it, and I'm sure that everyone's going to enjoy it.
Yeah. What I want to know also is that wine is, for me, is an essential part of good happiness. And then the word convivialité in French is, I think, the pleasure
Of
to
sharing. Exactly.
So what do you think about this convivialité with wine? Without wine, we cannot think about convivialité.
Wine really brings people to the table. And as you know, Koreans love being together and eating, also drinking and having a great time. And so obviously wine is part of that. And convivialité is really, that's what it's all about, is sharing. And a wine really enhances your life. And I really think that, for example, I haven't seen you for about 8 years, but when you see how particularly Seoul's changed as far as wine, it's really quite incredible. 8 years ago, you really only saw wine in restaurants, in hotels, and now you see it all over the city. You see lots of wine bars that have opened, lots of new restaurants, and you see a whole new generation of drinkers in their 20s or 30s. This year I did 2 big events, one in October, Great Wines of the World. There was 1,500 people at the Sheila, and we had 120 wineries from all over the world. And then a month later, there were 80 wineries, and the same amount of people came. They were all from Italy, the producers, and then another 1,500 people came, local people from Seoul. But it's really amazing, and even the wine producers were so impressed with how prepared people were. They were in their 20s and 30s mostly, how interested they were in wine. And I think that, you know, Seoul as a city, as a wine city, really could maybe in the next 5 years be the top wine city of Asia. It's very exciting. If you consider the growing middle class, I think that also that young people, they like to spend money on things like experiential things, whether it's going out to dinner with friends, traveling, drinking wine. So I think that this is really exciting compared to other big cities.
Oh, I'm so happy as a promoter of Korea. What you're saying is so encouraging for us.
No, great.
Yeah. And then
the wine market, interestingly, over COVID, it doubled. And it's almost it's almost a $2 billion wine market now for all of Korea.
When you compare before COVID and now COVID is finished, almost, so what's the tendency of wine consumption in Korea or in the world?
I think that, what happened was during COVID, people were at home, they were drinking a lot of wine. I think that sales globally have gone down slightly because people are traveling more, they're not just at home. So that's okay, because during that period, you doubled the consumption of fine wine in Korea. So even though sales have gone down slightly, I think a lot of people overstocked. They bought a lot of wine, the distributors, and it's in their warehouses. But everybody, I can tell you, in the outside of Korea, wine producers, everyone's really keen and interested in the Korean wine market. And also you've seen a big decline in the Chinese wine market, obviously because of the economy hasn't been doing well. So I think that people are looking to Korea as a really hot emerging market. And that's really exciting.
And also, James, you lived also quite a long time in France. So if you compare French people and Korean people, so can you compare those two people for the consumption wise?
Well, I think that French people, consumption of wine in France is actually declining, particularly in young people, and they're drinking. This is happening in a lot of places in the world. They're drinking more beer or craft beer or spirits, and so consumption of wine there is declining, while here it's increasing among young people. But I think that what the French and Koreans have in common is, again, that whole idea of getting together, drinking, enjoying life. And it's particularly important that you're all together around, the table and eating and having fun together and communicating.
When you were younger, you were a journalist at the same time, and now you are a wine critic. And for me, you are representing someone who is so creative. So how
Thank you.
can you explain about your transition from journalist to wine critic?
Well, essentially, the transition from being a journalist to a wine critic was pretty easy because as a journalist, I always looked at wine as a subject, and so I was always fascinated by the subject and also, more importantly, by the people or the vineyards. So I used the same techniques as a journalist, interviewing and understanding the situation, looking for the story, the angle, and I think that's why what I've done has been successful, because I'm good about communicating about wine. It's essentially, it's always looking at the story.
Yeah, I think you are really the greatest communicator about wine.
No, thank
Yeah. Wine makes people happy, and some Japanese cartoons said that it's the nectar of the god.
you. That's right.
So, how can you define wine?
Defining wine.
Yeah.
Well, obviously it's much more than just grapes fermented into wine. Wine is one of the few products in the world that you can consume, and then there's so much behind it. There's actually history, there's science, there's artisan ways of producing it, and also wine. It's defined by a vintage. So when you drink the wine, it may have been made 50 years ago. It may have been made 3 months ago, but it's marked by when it was made, and that's really interesting for a consumable product, and that's what makes wine very, very special. And it's all the stories behind the bottle, and also when you drink wine, it's sort of like hearing a song that you remember from a special moment, and wine can do the same thing. So I think it's an amazing product. I've spent my whole life learning about it and really sort of chasing the story of wine, and it never ends. People often ask me, well, what are you going to do when you retire? And then I just say, well, I don't know, I guess I would travel around the world and drink wine. Well, that's what I'm doing now.
Yeah, I think you have one of the greatest life, And then a lot of people, to drink wonderful wine, we have to pay a lot.
Yeah.
But as a wine critic, I think you don't need to pay, no?
No, well, we have a lot of samples.
Yeah.
But obviously, I can't drink them all. So I like to play tennis. I like to stay fit. So yeah, well, I actually spend a lot of money on wine too.
Wow, you
So,
too. Okay,
yeah.
yeah. What kind of wine will you recommend us for Koreans to know better about the wine?
Yeah, I think that the important thing on learning about wine and understanding wine, or let's say this journey of discovering wine, is you can't be intimidated. You have to just get out there, try a bottle, maybe try a Pinot Noir or something. Try that. If you want something fuller bodied, then try a Cabernet Sauvignon. And you start from there. You try one wine. If you like that, then maybe you look at ratings from me or other people, or you talk to the person at your wine shop or at a wine bar. And it's just always trying things and keeping track of what you drank. So if you like something, take a photo of the label, and then you have that, and then start from there. That's a benchmark, and you keep on trying different things. Funny enough, that's how I learned about wine in the late 1970s with my father, who was a wine critic, and that's how you learn about wine. It's really the experience of drinking and remembering what you drank. I'm hoping that my AI platform will help you.
Okay, yeah. Oh, James, thank you so much. And I know that you are so busy, but you gave us your precious time.
No,
thank you so much. And
thank you.
I hope the next time when you visit Korea, please let me know.
Thank
okay?
you. We'll share some wine together.
Okay, good. I'm waiting for that. 네, 여러분 오늘 너무나 바쁘고 세계적인 우리 제임스 서클링 와인 크리틱이 바쁜 시간 중에도 함께 해주셔서 정말 여러분과 함께 와인에 대한 사랑을 여러분께 전달해 드렸습니다. 우리 또 다음에 또 어디서 어떻게 만날지 모르지만 곧 만나도록 해요. 아비안토.
아비안토. 세요.